Good evening and thank you for joining us. Thunder Bay's ambitious housing target to build 2,200 new units by 2031 has been approved by City Council.
That decision came after some surprising news from administration regarding the pledge itself. Basilios Bellos is following the story and joins us live in studio with the details. Basilios.
Thanks, Ryan. City staff received a letter from the province just hours before the meeting saying the pledge didn't have to be approved to receive provincial housing funding. That was administration's assumption since hearing about the pledge, and just how the funding will be rolled out is still unclear. City Council has approved its provincial housing pledge, but not before administration spoke about some information received from Ontario just before the meeting.
Approval of the housing pledge is not a requirement to access and remain eligible for the Building Faster Fund.
Council still approved the ambitious housing pledge, despite hearing that it wasn't a requirement to access the provincial money. City staff received that information just hours before the meeting. The fund is meant to assist development, with administration estimating Thunder Bay could receive $1.5 million over the next 3 years.
We know that the financial capacity is there in the community.
Mayor Ken Boshkov believes developers are ready to help achieve the pledge of 2,200 new housing units by 2031, and says the city is already working to ensure quality building sites.
Restorations of former industrial lands have been taking place before our very eyes. And when you go to some of these properties, you won't recognize them anymore because so much has been done with them.
Promising news from administration as well, as 2023 has already seen 280 building permits issued, significantly higher than the 5-year average. Also during the meeting, a proposed zoning amendment on Government Road that received harsh opposition from neighborhood residents.
In the way of traffic, noise, intrusion on other properties.
A couple living on Government Road was hoping for a zoning amendment to allow them to host weddings and other events on their property, which could include building a recreation facility in the future. The city received 36 submissions from community members, 32 of which had objections or concerns.
The people who live there in the area have actively sought out a peaceful, safe, rural area in which to live. This rezoning application puts common goals and values of the entire area at risk in a variety of ways.
The applicants did address public concerns regarding noise and traffic, saying there hasn't been community pushback, even though they've hosted larger gatherings in the past.
Nobody has ever complained. It's just the fact that we want to add weddings. It's an opportunity for us to generate a bit of revenue, to keep the trails immaculate, to keep the property nice.
Council ultimately directed administration to narrow the scope of the zoning bylaw amendment to possibly address the concerns. Vasilios Bellos, TBT News.
Thunder Bay police are searching for more potential victims in a historic sexual assault investigation. 64-year-old Francesco Anselmo faces 10 charges, including 4 counts of sexual exploitation and 2 counts of sexual assault. It's alleged that the offenses happened between 1995 and 2012. The 2 known victims were under the age of 16 at the time. Police are appealing to any other victims to come forward. Anyone with information is urged to contact police or Crime Stoppers.
Police Chief Darcy Fleury addressed the local business community today at a leaders' luncheon hosted by the Chamber of Commerce.
During the keynote speech, Fleury placed a big emphasis on community engagement, while also hearing questions and feedback from the business community. Mitchell Ringos has more.
A number of business leaders made their way to the Slovak Legion to hear from City Police Chief Darcy Fleury at a leaders' luncheon hosted by the Chamber of Commerce. While the police force might not be as involved in the business sector as past speakers, Fleury says it's important to hear from all areas of the community, especially as a police force.
And when the opportunity came and they asked me a while ago to come out and have a chat about where we are with the organization and where we want to go and some of the plans that we have, I thought it was a great opportunity to come out and have another go with another group of people, just to have that full circle approach to what's going on in the community and get their input and as to what they'd like to see as well.
Chamber President Charlotte Robinson says she understands there are a lot of competing priorities for the police force, but believes keeping an open line of communication is not only good for the business sector, but for the community as a whole.
So we really appreciate, that their focus on that community engagement, and that they, the chief and the deputy chief are, taking that time to help to get all perspectives as they're developing their plan. So we really appreciate being involved in that.
And following Fleury's speech came a question period, with Robinson asking what businesses should do when experiencing vandalism, break-ins, or loitering. She said they were previously told to call the shelter house's SOS number, but the program was canceled last year due to a lack of funding, leaving businesses confused.
If we don't get the call, we can't do anything about it. But if we get the call and what's the situation and who's there and what's happening, we can start building ourselves towards, okay, what do we need to do if something more serious comes about.
Robinson says that's a welcome new message from the police force.
Previously, we were handing out phone numbers for SOS, and now it's like, okay, the process has changed. So now the Chamber can help to communicate that to our business community to let them know that they do want that information, so that they can be developing, maybe there's trends that feeds into. So good for us to know that.
Robinson says this was the first time they've had a business-style dialogue with police, and she looks forward to future conversations. Mitchell Ringos, TBT News.
There's heartbreak in Sault Ste. Marie after 4 people were killed, including 3 children, in a deadly shooting.
Police are now investigating what's being called a case of intimate partner violence. Zoraida Allman reports.
The 911 call came at 10:20 last night for a break-and-enter at a home. It was there police found the body of a 41-year-old dead of a gunshot wound. About 10 minutes later, another 911 call, that home about 3 kilometers away. Inside, police made the horrific discovery: the bodies of 3 children, aged 6, 7, and 12 years old. All 3 were shot to death. They also found the body of a 44-year-old, the shooter, police say, dead of a self-inflicted gunshot wound.
When it comes to the loss of life, specifically the 3 young children, it causes everybody to lean in and ask why.
Police confirm both incidents are connected and the result of intimate partner violence. Sault Ste. Marie's mayor says the community is reeling.
There are no words to express how deeply sympathetic our community is feeling and the mourning that our community is experiencing.
The Prime Minister addressing the tragedy in Parliament this morning.
I want to extend my deepest condolences to the grieving families, friends, and loved ones of the victims. Know that you are not alone.
A statement from the Algoma School Board says the entire school board community is heartbroken over the loss of 3 of their students. Staff have been put in place at schools impacted by this tragedy, which are Boreal French Immersion Public School and Superior Heights. Premier Doug Ford on social media called the news out of Sault Ste. Marie gut-wrenching, saying all of Ontario mourns this tragedy.
And when we look at scenarios like this, we all ask the question, why? How could somebody, oh my God, 3 children? It's incredibly challenging. And that's why I think the impetus for my message to the community is take care of each other. And hopefully this stuff never happens again.
The names of the victims have not been released.
Well, that was CTV's Zoraida Allman reporting. For the second time in 3 years, a fire has destroyed trailers at the Shibandawon Shores Resort on Lake Shibandawon. Fortunately, no injuries were reported, and OPP say the fire doesn't appear suspicious. The blaze is believed to have started in one trailer on the lakefront shortly before 8 o'clock this morning before spreading to another nearby unit. Both trailers were completely destroyed, and a third sustained significant heat damage. The Shibandawon Fire Department responded and managed to keep the fire from spreading further. The owner of the resort says the tenants will likely go through their insurance to replace the trailers. In June of 2020, a fire at the same resort destroyed 4 trailers and a washroom building.
Plans to build a renewable natural gas plant at the site of the former Nipigon Mill have been scrapped, but the project could still move ahead in Hercot. Hopes were high at this open house in Nipigon back in January. Lake Nipigon Forest Management plans to use wood waste to produce natural gas. General Manager Scott Rubin says the environmental assessment revealed widespread contamination at the former Multiply Mill site, which made it unsuitable for the project. Nipigon Mayor Suzanne Kuko calls the decision disappointing, but she's grateful the company provided the township with a copy of the report, saving the expense of another assessment.
So it's a big blow to the community, but yeah, moving forward, looking ahead, and it's like I say, I've been looking over the report, and it's not like there's anything radioactive in the soil or anything like that. So there might be a cost to do that cleanup, but we'll take a look at what that cost will be and hopefully get that done.
Sounds like in the past they used to clean the mill out using fire hoses to wash all your lubricants and items out with all the sawdust that was contained in it. And so if it was like a contaminant located in one like small area there, it would be easy to deal. But because it was flushed out over the area, it's kind of contaminates a big area of the site.
Rubin says it's disappointing to move away from the first choice, but the company is already moving ahead with a new environmental assessment of the Herkett site, and he's very optimistic about that location.
Queen's Park is dealing with the fallout from the censure of former NDP member Sarah Jama.
While she's no longer able to participate in Parliament, her presence is still being felt. Siobhan Morris reports.
Hey, no. A day after MPPs voted to keep her from speaking in the legislature, Sarah Jama is absent. Her desk removed from the NDP block of seats after the leader kicked her out of caucus.
It's a very difficult thing to do, and there will be people in our party who are not happy about this.
At Merritt Styles' constituency office, a sign of anger this morning with the message, Free Palestine, blood on your hands taped to the window, and red paint splashed across the NDP leader's picture.
This isn't about her statement yesterday or her tweet or any of these things.
Instead, Styles says it's about a series of incidences.
We've worked really hard for a long time now with MPP Jama. But, if you're on a team, we can't have MPPs essentially acting completely independent of our caucus and undermining the work we do.
Sarah Jama has filed a notice of defamation against the Premier for an online statement in which he says Jama has a history of anti-Semitism and suggests she endorsed the killing of innocent Jews. Jama wanted that post removed and an apology, but the Premier and his lawyer are standing by his comments. At Queen's Park, Siobhan Morris, CTV News.
A First Nations housing conference is now underway in Thunder Bay, continuing its legacy of improving the lives of those in remote communities.
The 21st annual event features a diverse program of workshops and training sessions. Josh Moreno was there.
The First Nation Housing Conference has played an essential role in addressing the housing challenges faced by First Nation communities throughout Canada. The conference runs 3 days, with day one featuring the opening ceremonies. Committee member Jonathan Gregg says this event is crucial to bringing much-needed housing to remote communities because it delivers insight to the challenges they face, and he says it will hopefully teach them how to build on their own as a community.
A lot of times our First Nations are bringing outside skilled labor into the community to build their houses. And with that, we need to start working towards to reduce some of that outside, not because of the great support that comes from there, but just so that we can start building an economic basin within our own communities and start to have that sense of pride that we're building our own homes.
Lisa McLeod is with the Lakehead Public Schools, and she works with a program called the KZ Lodge. The program helps connect Indigenous youth with the land and the culture. McLeod says they've recently expanded and offer a program related to housing called the Indigenous Skills Training Program. The tiny home was built by the Indigenous youth at Hammersholt, and it was brought to the Valhalla for this event. McLeod says this class has helped the youth develop a new love for wanting to go to school and get an education.
They're amazing students. The program is going very well. They're engaged, they're attending school. They are from the communities, and they have their struggles, but the program is changing their lives for the better.
While education for the youth and bringing skills trades into communities was at the top of the agenda, Gregg says funding is what makes the entire dream possible. Minister of Indigenous Services Patty Hajdu was not at the conference Tuesday, but announced at last year's federal budget an additional $2.4 billion over 5 years to support First Nation housing projects on reserves.
Any kind of funding for housing is much needed, especially when it talks about housing manager and developing those skills, and anything related to adding more housing dollars, more infrastructure. The challenge is just the farther you're away from a major city, it's just harder to work, and infrastructure is just starting to become to an end of its life in a lot of our First Nations.
The event continues over the next couple of days, highlighted by the Builders Challenge on Wednesday, before closing ceremonies wrap things up Thursday afternoon. Josh Morano, TBT News.
A New Zealand man flew across the world in order to try running across Canada like his hero Terry Fox. John Nabbs is making a pit stop in Thunder Bay on his mission to raise spirits and money for childhood cancer research. Nabbs started in Newfoundland and has now been running for 173 days. He stopped at the Terry Fox Monument to admire the man who inspired his mission. Nabbs decided to run after losing both his parents to cancer a few years ago. He's managed to run more than 4,000 kilometers so far, raising almost $20,000 in the process. He says the Superman costumes that you can see him wearing on his journey began as a way to connect with children receiving cancer care, and he's shocked by the level of support it's earned him from the public.
But I was a little bit nervous about, wearing it out in public. This is the last thing I would normally wear, it's a full-body Superman costume. But what I did not expect is the general public. They just love it. I get waves everywhere. I'll be running down the highway and people will do like the Superman pose in their car as they're driving, and I'm, thinking like, oh, safety first, guys. But
Well, Nabbs also knows that he's racing against time with winter approaching and more than 3,000 kilometers to go until he reaches Victoria, BC.
A big lottery windfall for a Nipigon man. Adam McMurtry has won cash for life. McMurtry, who's in his 30s, has chosen to receive $1,000 a week for the rest of his life instead of the $675,000 one-time payout. The winning ticket was purchased in Nipigon at the bargain shop on Front Street.
Congratulations to him. That is a life-changing amount of money.
Absolutely.
To be sure. Well, turning to weather now, Mitch. It was a bit of a gray, dreary day today, and we saw some moisture out there too.
Yeah, the weather was not as good as that big win. I'd rather have the winning ticket than the weather we saw today. There was some rain, especially if you woke up early in the morning. Couple showers on and off throughout the day as well, and the temperature a low of 5, making its way up to 9. So we are close to that seasonal mark, but a little bit cooler, especially with the wind making its way from the northwest. Now, as we head to the region, also lots of rain, especially farther south. There is a system pushing farther east, sticking around Fort Frances. They saw plenty of rain throughout the day, currently sitting at 7. Just some clouds at the moment, but could see some more showers heading into tonight as it's going to push farther to Atikokan and Upsala. Now, farther northwest, it's been fairly sunny, just a couple of clouds over the day. Currently, plenty of sunshine with temperatures sitting around 4, so a little bit cooler throughout the day, while farther northeast, similar conditions, a little bit of cloud coverage. They could see a little bit of showers overnight, but mostly going to see some clouds in Armstrong moving its way down to Greenstone. They're getting closer to that 0 mark. Now, also seeing some rain is Sault Ste. Marie. Really showers throughout the day. That's going to continue heading into tonight. Temperatures a lot warmer, currently sitting at 14. So definitely above seasonal as we head to Sault Ste. Marie, but they are seeing plenty of rain. Now, tonight in Thunder Bay, we could also see some early showers, then mostly clouds throughout the night, but there is more rain on the way throughout the week. Temperatures sitting around 6, and the wind's going to be up from the north. Now, Fiona talked about this yesterday. There is another system making its way to the region. As you can see, the big blue spot on the screen, that is snow, and it is making its way towards Ontario, especially the region, and the chance of making its way to Thunder Bay. So we could be seeing some snow heading into Friday and possibly the weekend. I'll have details in just a little bit.
Well, thank you so much, Mitch. Well, turning to the Israel and Hamas conflict, where one of the hostages who's been released spoke out for the first time today. We'll have all those details for you as your Tuesday News Hour continues.
Israel says it killed top Hamas commanders in a barrage of airstrikes over the past 24 hours.